Well, it was a little busy around here through the Christmas season. Had folks from out of state visiting, my daughter from Arkansas, my son from San Diego. Well, that's not exactly out of state, but pretty darn close. Anyway, haven't been having a lot of time for doing this kind of work. And I've also been ailing since Christmas, off and on with a cold thing that's going around the state here. So, yeah, we'll dive right into it here. All right, let's back up a little ways from where I am at the moment to, I believe it was 50, that's where we ended up, which is the CW low cut frequency, which I have set at 300 hertz. And it can be selected and it can go up to, I don't know, 1,000 and down to off, 100 hertz being the lowest, default being 250 hertz. I'll leave it at 300. Again, the next thing is the slope. Default is 18 dB per octave. I'll leave it there. That seems reasonable. Not really interested in stuff below there. I have it set to 1200 hertz on the high side, which is the default. So that's not a bad place to have it. And 18 dB per octave. So I should be able to receive anything from 300 to 1200 hertz with no filtering, and very little outside of that. And then the level here is set to 20. This is the level that comes out the back. It's a fixed level, very similar to what we'd get with the volume control from the internal speaker or the external speaker I have behind this radio. But the back panel level coming off the jack in the back would be at 20%, as I've set it here. I believe it defaults to 50% or something. Anyway, the CW auto mode I do not understand and looked and could not find in the manual. So you may want to look through the manual, see if you find out what that means. It's got off 50 and on. So it's probably off 50% and on, I would presume. Break-in is a little more straightforward. Most of us know what that's all about. There's semi-automatic break-in, and there's full. Full break-in, you hear things between keying strokes, and semi will have a delay. That's the default. Break-in delay on CW is 100 milliseconds. As set by me, I believe they default to 200 milliseconds. So you can do whatever you want there. I believe it goes up to 3 seconds. I'm not going to go up there because the resolution on this knob is so fine that it takes forever to get up to 3,000 milliseconds, which is 3 seconds, of course. So we'll leave it at 100, which is where I wanted it. CW wave shape here is set to 4 milliseconds default. You only have one other selection, that's 2. That will give you more key clicks, of course. It depends on what your speed is. If you're, a 25 word per minute guy, you might want to set that to 2. Otherwise, the 4 milliseconds is reasonable. That's the wave shaping on the CW signal. And the CW frequency display here, direct frequency is what I've set it to. That's the BFO frequency. So it's reading the BFO frequency, and your actual frequency of the tone would be whatever you set the tone on the thing to. Normally that's 680 or 700, somewhere in there for most people that set up the tone. But I have it on direct because that way I know where the carrier frequency is. DAKY again is keying of the PC from the back jack. Of course, this is also digital keying, if you wish, keys to ground. It does the same thing, only it uses mechanical not mechanical, probably electrical, but anyway, it pulls to ground on that back connector. But it has standard RTS and DTR capability as well for RS-232-like signaling of a keying circuit. Oh, and it can also be set to off. QSK delay time is how long it takes for the key to actually key. 15 milliseconds is the minimum, and 30 milliseconds is the maximum in 5 millisecond steps. So whenever you key something, it's going to take a slight delay of 15 milliseconds to get it to actually respond. Data mode, before we go on to new modes here, let me also grab this sheet right here and show you some of the other things that are very similar to what we just covered. AM has the capability of low and high frequency cuts and slopes. CW has it, which we just talked about. Data has it. RTTY has it. Single sideband has it. So you can set the upper and lower frequency of the cutoff and the slope of 6 dB or 18 dB per octave. So just so you know what that's all about. This is 40 through 43, that's 50 through 53, 67 to 70, 92 to 95, 102 to 105 for the different modes here. Unfortunately, they don't have it for FM, which would be really nice. Japanese voices tend to be low-pitched, and they like a lot of rumbly audio. And well, it's not too bad on the internal speaker on this thing. On my external speaker, I do get a lot more bass than I'd like to have on FM. But it's even worse on C4 FM, which actually has a little more, quote, high fidelity, unquote. But for communications purposes, it's a little rumbly as far as I'm concerned. And I would love to be able to change that. But that isn't available in this list of changes you can make to the tone of the receiver. Now, the tone changes are both through this audio level set here for the internal speaker or external speaker, as well as on the back panel. So you will have the same roll-off on either one. So you can listen on the internal speaker or the external speaker and adjust your tone to what you would like it to sound like. So that's something to recognize and be able to do. Now these data modes, there's others, and I think that's others or PSK. Yeah, PSK or others. So that would be PSK. This would be probably JT65, any of those other types of data modes. So it can be set here. PSK tone is 1500 hertz. You have a selection of 1 kilohertz or 1000 hertz, 1500 hertz, or 2000 hertz available at that point. Default is 1000. I usually set it to 1500. Other is the same thing, I think. It goes up pretty high and down pretty low. I'd have to, well, let's just go through it. For sideband, so that goes 0 and plus is minus 3 kilohertz, I believe. But anyway, I'm going to leave it at what is it they want it defaulted to here? Can't find the default. Huh. Yeah, well, there you go. I'm going to put it at 0. I think maybe that's where it should be. Yeah, 0. Okay, so default is 0. So that's where I'm going to leave it. Other shift, same thing. You can adjust that according to whatever you need. Again, those are things you really want to consult the manual to find out about. And then we discussed data cut. Here's your 66 through 69. The input select is set up for rear at the default, and that's what I have it set to. I have it to RTS for the push to talk select. Data port select is USB port, so that's what I have it set to. And you have that, or you have, whoops, got to go down one more here. So the data port select can be either data or it can be USB. So it can either go through the back jack as a tone, data tone or data signals baseband, or it can go through the USB port, which this has a built-in sound card, and you can use that for software, probably like Ham Radio Deluxe, whatever. That output level, I've got it at 20%. I've selected this FM mic input. You can also have the FM come in from the rear if you wish. There might be a reason you want to do that, and it's entirely up to you. You have that option. The output level, in this case, I have it at 30%. Again, you have 0 to 100%, I presume there. Push to talk is DAKY, which is this guy, or the key to ground in the back. FM packet select is data. That's the default. You also have, whoops, USB. So you can do packet either way on this thing. Transmit gain, I guess it looks like I've left this to 50%. Let me drop that down to, well, let's put it to 20%. If and when I attach something here for packet, I'll adjust that according to what's necessary. Packet mode is 1200 baud. I think it has 1200 and 9600. So 1200, that would be for, I believe, on 2 meters. And of course on 432 you could use, or 440, you can use 9600 baud. So both of those are available. We'll leave it on the slower one for the moment. Repeater shift at 28 megs. I've got it set for 100 kilohertz, which is the standard for the band. Oops. Repeater shift at 50 megahertz. Now, this is not the normal frequency shift for 6 meters. The reason I have it set to 1600 kilohertz is because I have a transverter with the 50 megahertz IF, and so the 50 megahertz band is what I use with that. And if I want to have an FM repeater at 220, it's designed for 220 output, by the way. You want to transmit up 1600 kilohertz, so I put 1600 in here instead of the normal. Let's see, is given as a default here. I forget what it is. I think it's, well, I guess I don't know what it is. You might have to look that one up unless we find it here just by chance. Well, there you go. So oh, there it is. Oh, it's 1 megahertz, 1000 kilohertz. Okay. So that's the default. Now I'm no longer using that transverter. I have a different one that's at 28 megahertz. So I'll just leave that at 1000 kilohertz. That way, if I do FM operation through a repeater on 6 meters, it'll be correct. So I'll enter that. And again, standard 600 kilohertz on 2 meters, and at 430 5000 kilohertz or 5 megahertz. And that's a plus typically. This is a plus or minus depending on the frequency on the 144 band. ARS 144 is on, and same for 430. So both of those are active. You can turn them off. DCS polarity depends on what kind of digital squelch you're using. TNRIV, TIVRN, TIV-RIV, but the default's TN and RN. Don't know anything about that. So those that are using DCS on a digital mode will know what that's all about, I'm sure. Whoops. This is a radio ID. It can't be changed. That's what it is, and they're just telling you what it is here. Digital squelch type, again, this is for digital squelch operation. It's off typically. You can do it by code. You can do it by a break. I leave it off. Digital squelch code, again, you have the ability to change that. And 1 is the default. Group monitor display will display either the distance of a station from you or the strength of the station. Distance is the default and is a typically used setting. The distance here can be in miles, which is default for the US bands, or kilometers. So whichever you prefer. We're in the US, we'll go miles. AMS TX mode is digital narrow, which is what I usually leave it set to. You can have either digital narrow, voice wide, that would be voice only, or analog, which would be FM. In essence, that's a C4 setting for the C4 FM modes. So if you don't want that mode ever to come on, you'd use analog there. But I leave it on DN. And you can also set it to auto, which is the default, or manual. If you have it on auto, it can be frustrating if you have a repeater that has both analog and digital signals, C4 FM signals on it, especially like a net. If somebody cuts in there and happens to be in analog mode, it'll switch you to analog, and then you won't hear the next digital signal that comes on. So we've learned to leave it in digital narrow for our net, which digital narrow gives you voice and the identification information while you're talking. So I leave it there. Standby beep is on. That's this beep here. Standby low frequency cut on radio teletype. Well, we went over this before with our little card, and so you have all those settings possible. Then the port that creates a shift is RTS, but again, that can be RTS, DTR, or the shift port. Shift port being one of the ports on the connector on the back. This is for digital keying from programs. That's where I'm going to leave it. Teletype is either normal in OR or reverse on receive. Same thing on transmit, normal or reverse. And that gets us up to 100, so it looks like a good stopping place for the moment.